Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone is having a great Wednesday afternoon. It is currently around 5 p.m. here from Ponte Vedra, Florida. It is Michael Schneider with another episode of Mic'd Up. And boy, do we got some things to talk about today. A lot of stuff kind of written down here. NFL Combine obviously coming up. One of our main points to talk about, obviously, Olympics have wrapped up. They wrapped up Sunday. The closing ceremony was then. I think hockey was around one of our last events with the Olympics. So that's what we got going on. MLB, spring training, games are starting. We've still got a little bit of ways until the World Baseball Classic next month of March, and then opening day, I believe, is March as well, worst case, early April. Obviously, we have PGA. PGA is still going on. It's kind of cooling down for now as we're kind of switching from the West Coast swing to the East Coast and that tour. And yeah, so we got, NFL, MLB, NBA, or not NBA, PGA, and the Olympics. Not too much basketball news to talk about today. Obviously, NBA just got off the All-Star break. We're kind of just riding it out until we get to, obviously, the playoffs. That's kind of what we're going to be covering as we get closer. March is coming up. I know we're getting towards the end of kind of the regular season for a lot of teams. A lot of teams are going to be, halting play due to the fact that they are not good enough to make the tourney. Obviously, we have conference play. Then we have, obviously, the conference tournaments. We have the, the main bracket. So let's go from here. Starting off, NFL, obviously, today, I believe, tomorrow marks the start of the NFL Combine. We've already had a lot of press conferences leading up to the dates. I believe that the linebackers, or the front seven, defensive line, linebackers, and the special teams, which is punters, kickers, they start off, and then quarterbacks, receivers follow afterward. I believe we finish off with running backs. It's going to be spread out. I want to say it's defensive backs that finish this out. So it's going to be a few days, obviously, a combine. Everybody knows what the combine is. If you don't know what the combine is, it is a few set of days. Different skill groups obviously go within each day, and they show off their skill. You have the 40-yard dash, you have strength, you have vertical, you have all these drills to basically either boost draft stock, which, honestly, you can't really tank your draft stock too much within the combine. Obviously, for receivers, might be different. For quarterbacks, not too much. It also depends on, how, you can play, how you can perform, how you can show. A lot of guys are already making big names for themselves. A lot of have done that in college and in the Senior Bowl. And within the offseason, obviously, we have pro days coming up in March. I believe they start in March, early March, actually. So they will also have, opportunities to shine there. It's kind of like a mini combine for college teams. So, so it starts the 26th, which is tomorrow, Thursday, and it goes to March 1st, which I want to believe is Monday or Tuesday. So here is kind of, my top 6 guys to look at, because I couldn't pick, just, top 5, top 10. If I would have gone top 10, I would have been talking about these guys for too long. We got a bunch of other stuff to cover today, so we are not going to be going too much into detail about it. I will give a little bit of explanation on a couple of these guys, because I know they might not be names that a lot of, casual NFL fans or people that are kind of grazing this sport might be, watching the combine every now and then, might be looking out for. They might not know these guys. Obviously, at the top of my list, Heisman winner Fernando Mendoza of Indiana. Obviously, he's shown tremendous talent, but it would be interesting to see how he can, show off his skills in, a stage like this against a lot of other quarterbacks, pretty much all the other high-tier quarterbacks that have come out of college football this past year. Obviously, there's not too many that, stick out. Obviously, the Heisman winner Fernando Mendoza, but even then, obviously, his stats weren't magnified as much as they were compared to past winners, despite past winners not having this 12-team college football playoff format. So that's what we got going on. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza is going to be at the top of a lot of people's lists. Obviously, I think a lot of defensive guys can also gravitate around there. Obviously, Ruben Bain. I don't have Ruben Bain on here because, obviously, if you know college football, you know Ruben Bain. You can watch out for him. He's going to be doing well. I'm excited to see how he does. But the defensive guys that I have up here, it's only one guy. I'm not really too much of a defensive guru myself. I like to pick apart offenses, and I like to watch, how offenses play, In my time that I did spend around football, I was more of an offensive guy, not too much of a defensive guy. But do what you will. Obviously, I think that, the combine is more, when we're talking about speed, we're talking about vert, we're talking about, strength and all this stuff. Strength, could be a little bit more of a defensive thing. But I'd say for the fact that for speed and all these stuff, I think it just kind of pertains more to the offense. Obviously, catching drills and whatnot. There's also, the defensive drills for DBs and stuff like that. Like, figure out what the drill's called, where you're dropping into coverage and you're like watching the quarterback, watching the throw. It's just like a lob pass most of the time, or it's like a touch pass, as I would say in mine. But I'm not going to go too much into detail about it. But obviously we have Fernando Mendoza. Talked about him. David Bailey, Texas Tech edge rusher. I know he's on a lot of people's boards, obviously behind Ruben Bain. But it'll be interesting to see how he performs, especially after coming off a 14.5 sack season for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Obviously, Jacob Rodriguez could also be in tandem there with David Bailey to watch out for as we go deeper into the combine, looking at different players and how they perform. Now, this one, I think, out of all of them, these next two are a little interesting because these are guys that have made noise before but haven't been talked about too much, obviously, in the playoff scheme because, they haven't really been playing too much. And it's one Drew Aller from Penn State and Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt. Obviously, Eli Stowers has been proven one of the top tight ends in college football. Obviously, his team has been, Vanderbilt has been, they played well. They played a good season, but I think that, it'll be an interesting guy to keep an eye out for when it comes to the draft and comes to, these fundamental skills that these, tight ends need to perform. And Drew Aller, this could be a really confusing pick for a lot of people. First off, Penn State ended up firing their coach after he got injured. I want to say it was after he got injured, or it was... I'm trying to remember if Coach Franklin got fired after UCLA or Northwestern. Timelines are not matching up here. But either way, a lot of the stuff that happened with him obviously was to blame on Coach Franklin for leaving now at Virginia Tech. But really, I think Drew Aller, I think he still has a lot of skill. Obviously, it was kind of a broken relationship with Coach Franklin and the front office for the school of Penn State. It'll be interesting to see. I know that guy has an arm on him. We're just gonna have to pick apart how well he plays, or how well he performs here in the combine. And I think that he can really still make somewhat of a name for himself. Obviously, Pro Day is still coming up too. A lot of people have made a lot of bold claims off of Pro Days. Obviously, Zach Wilson being one of the most famous ones. Being I don't want to say a disappointment, but kind of a letdown compared to what everybody put him on a pedestal based on a couple of throws from his Pro Day at BYU back in 2020, 2021. Yeah, so we got, obviously it's a huge name when it comes to, Pro Day and all this. Anthony Richardson as well. I want to say Joe Milton was up there, and it was basically for their arm strength. These guys are able to sling the ball downfield with accuracy too. I don't know if Anthony Richardson, it might have been him or Joe Milton. Neither of them obviously now have that deep threat accuracy. Not going to go too much into detail about that. Eli Stowers though, I think he's still one of my top picks for tight end. Obviously, his team not being in the playoffs makes a huge impact on that. But surprisingly, there's a ton of Ohio State guys, and a lot of these analysts' top projections for the first round of the NFL draft. Jeremiah Love, one of the top, or if not the top running back in scouting coming out of this year's bunch of guys for the draft, and then obviously Carnell Tate to follow. No questions asked about Carnell Tate, an athletic guy, crazy, and that's when we talk about these skilled these skill drills. Obviously vert, speed, catching drills. That will be huge to watch for him. Keep him on your radars. Obviously, he's proven to be a deep threat target and a slot threat throughout the entire season. More of a deep threat, if anything. So keep an eye out for Carnell Tate. I expect him to make, obviously, even more noise than You know, he did in this season. Obviously, it's very relative for a lot of these guys to be in their pro days. A lot of them you would expect them to be doing. You would expect them to be performing in pro days or participating in pro days. However, you could have a little bit of petty guys that think they're too good. Diego Pavia potentially could be one of those. Probably not. I don't know. He will also be a name that will be in the combine. Obviously, he got invited, being one of the Heisman finalists last year. So keep an eye out for him. Obviously not too great compared to Fernando Mendoza, but Fernando Mendoza isn't, I would say, on the level of his own. Obviously, the Heisman was kind of a up in the air thing for the past year. But yeah, so currently in these past few days, we haven't had too much of the performance evaluations of these guys. We've just kind of had, okay, what have they done in college? What have they done in Senior Bowls going into this? Also, I did want to throw up another honorable mention along with Drew Aller in the quarterback position. I'm going to gravitate on this position when I'm talking about, evaluating the combine as much as possible. But Garrett Nussmeier, obviously he played a great game in the Senior Bowl. I think that he still has a shot to prove for a lot of teams. Watch out for him in the combine, him in his pro day. Definitely a sight to see, because I think that Garrett Nussmeier could be far from done. He could be a very reliable backup someday in the NFL, if not a starter. So it's just really how this talent develops. So keep him up there. It could be a very underrated target to look at for this upcoming draft. But yeah, so like I said, going back to the topic before, there has been a lot of GM talk these past few days. There has been speculation with Coach Stefanski that he was, not bought in on the entire Michael Penix scheme. And realistically, you could see flashbacks of what happened with Deshaun Watson and Baker Mayfield back in Cleveland. Obviously, Baker Mayfield, like I said, I think in a couple episodes ago, Baker Mayfield was shipped off from Cleveland or will ask for a trade, especially because he was treated like garbage, allegedly, according to his words, in a Twitter post responding to an Atlanta reporter. After, Stefanski and the front office their clear pursuit over Deshaun Watson. So, but I think this is obviously a different scenario. Michael Penix is an injury-prone quarterback, already been injured, I want to say 3 times for the same exact injury. I don't know if it's the same leg, but 3 ACLs probably there. I want to say there's another one in there somewhere. Obviously, he had the injury at Indiana. He had one at Washington, I want to say, and then he had obviously the injury last year, midway through the season for the Atlanta Falcons. So it's a very smart decision by Coach Stefanski to. It's a lot of people don't understand how detailed this guy's job is. Obviously, he's the head coach of the team. Obviously, Ian Cunningham, these guys have talked, and to have all of your chips in on an injury-prone quarterback that could literally make or break your season at any point in the entire league, and at one point in time, is a very fragile subject for these guys because they can make or break their job. So, and you can see a prime example of it, how it happened last year. The Atlanta Falcons were doing all right, a little shaky. Obviously, Zach Robinson has his part to play. Raheem Morris has his part to play. Young Hoku has his part to play. There's a lot of guys that have their part to play. It's a team collective thing, but at the end of the day, your quarterback is your signal caller for the most part. He makes your plays. Linemen, you could talk about the offensive lineman. You can go in all detail about that. Realistically, you're putting the ball in your quarterback's hand. And it's whether or not he can make those plays, whether or not he's physically capable to make those plays. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to, praise Stefanski. He hasn't done anything in Atlanta exactly yet. But they do obviously plan to, whoever they bring in, treat them well. I believe, was it Kadero? No, it wasn't Kadero. Was it Kadero Hodge? They released their Pro Bowl returner. I want to say it was Kadero Hodge. I could be talking about Kadero Hodge. They released him today. He was obviously a Pro Bowl returner. Great player. One of those impending free agent targets. And they have to really be very smart with how they go financially this next offseason. Obviously, I wouldn't say too crazy of a hit, but for a special teams unit that's already kind of struggling, it's going to be interesting to come back and see how they do from that and who we're going to have to put at the return spot. Obviously, when it comes to the wide receiver core, I wouldn't say he was too fond of, targets from, Kirk and from Michael Penix. But he also did have, or Michael Penix and whoever the quarterback is, like I said before, they will be, equipped exponentially. I don't think we will retain or we will re-sign Tyler Algier. Obviously, the franchise tag has already been used on Kyle Pitts, huge target. Kind of, started from the bottom. Now he's here, as Drake would say. But obviously Drake London as well. Bijan Robinson, also that dual threat guy. Hasn't been injury prone. Not going to jinx it. He is not injured. He's not gotten injured. And I'm not going to say he will never get injured, because that's just, bad juju. That's just preying on his downfall, and I don't want to do that. He's my favorite player currently. Drake London's a close second, but that's what we got going on. Obviously, special teams was a huge dumpster fire last year for the Atlanta Falcons, but these speculations, I haven't seen official clips of Stefanski talking about this situation. Obviously, he's said stuff about it before in pressers, kind of the same thing, but I mean, it's kind of up in the air right now. Obviously, Michael Penix hasn't proven too much. He's proved that he can win games, but, it's got to be hand in hand with the coordinators, hand in hand with the coaches, So the new set of guys, we're going to kind of tell what's going on. A lot of interesting guys to target in this free agency pool. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa. There's a lot of people hinting that he will be out at Miami or for the Dolphins. Obviously, the Dolphins are kind of in that rebuild mode. They just fired their coach, so now they're going to be going in a rebuild direction. Obviously, Bradley Chubb got released. All that stuff. Tyson Bagent from the Bears. There was allegedly calls from the Bears GM for Tyson Bagent, which honestly had like a few decent games a couple of years back. I want to say it was 2024. So keep an eye out for him in free agency. The Atlanta Falcons could go that way. Kirk Cousins, obviously, he is released as of a couple of weeks from now on the 11th as the official timeline. So that's what we got going on. But to talk about other free agencies, free agent prospects on the market that will be coming up once the new season officially starts. Obviously, Raiders GM, he kind of attacked the Max Crosby rumors head on, saying that he intends to keep Max Crosby on the team, in a quote that I want to say went exactly like, we have a lot of good players, and to be a good team, you have to retain a lot of these elite guys, and he really does not want to see Max Crosby being on another team. That last part, I don't know if that was in his exact quote, but he used the word elite players, which Max Crosby is an elite player. Obviously, a little bit of injuries, but I think you can't not surrounding him with enough elite guys on that defense. Obviously, he's kind of the main, he's kind of the show there in Las Vegas. Obviously, they had the first-round pick. Also said that he could potentially be open to trading the first-round pick. He didn't, reverse. He didn't exactly say that, but he said that he's not indifferent to it. He's not definite on using it or not using it. So I remember reading somewhere this could be speculation. This could be an interesting way of thinking at it. I forgot what the word was, but it was basically like a bargaining chip, I want to say. Basically showing the media, showing all these teams, showing all the fans, that he intends to fight and die to kind of hold in Max Crosby, holding this first-round pick, which could increase asking prices. Obviously, Max Crosby, if you want to attain the guy, it's going to be no cheap price. Dude is premier talent in the NFL, and to keep premier talent in the NFL or to attain it, it's going to cost an arm and a leg, safe to say. And that's basically what he's saying. I want to say that's what I forgot what the exact analyst was that said that, but I think it was a very interesting approach. And obviously, obviously it's been used in the past. So obviously Texans GM, we're talking about a lot of GMs, spitting stuff out, addressing rumors. Texans GM calls the CJ Stroud trade moronic, defending CJ Stroud despite, his kind of what was this? This technically his junior year. His junior year, I wouldn't say it was a slump. He kind of brought the team back. Obviously, the defense was a huge part of that comeback. But it'll be interesting to see how he goes into next season. Obviously, I know that Tank Dell, he's been gone. Nico Collins, always injury prone. These guys, I think his receiver core is just kind of, at least from what I've seen on the outside, is a lot of inconsistent stuff. People getting injured, people getting sent off. So I think you just got to kind of keep the guys around him consistent. And I know that their offensive line has also been kind of, for the most part, from what I've heard, lackluster. So that's what we got going on. I already talked about the Tua trade potentially. And along with this Kyle Pitts franchise tag, Breece Hall is expected or has been told to get the franchise tag for the New York Jets. So it's a very interesting position that the Jets have here. Obviously, Tyrod Taylor was their main guy. Justin Fields was also in the backfield there. So, yeah, that's the franchise tag deals we got going on. I haven't heard too much about any of the franchise tags, but a lot of people have also been speculating that someone like George Pickens might be sent offward to another team. Personally, I don't think the Cowboys want to lose a guy like that, but it's time to start asking yourself, is it Dak Prescott? We're not going to go too much into detail about that, but we are going to transition from the NFL to the MLB. A lot of prospects that were drafted in previous years balling out for their teams. Pirates Connor Griffin hits two home runs, I believe yesterday in a blowout win, 16-7 over the Red Sox. Yeah, that was Tuesday, February 24th. Michael Arroyo, he is a power hitting demon, proving to be a valuable target for Colombia next year. I think that's I want to say that's where he's from, or Dominican Republic or something along those lines. Don't butcher me, even though I might have butchered it. But he had a 406 foot home run, and he is at 3 barrels and a 406 home run at 3 at bats. So basically, his exit velocity is exponential. I think what's technically described as a barrel is 98 miles per hour has an exit velocity or above. I'm not like a scientist and all this stuff, but it's basically a rocket. It's a rocket. And it might not have the perfect angle when he's coming in the swing where it's just a homer. This one happened to be 406. So that's what we got going on. And Yankees Carlos LaGrange with 2 of the fastest pitches in spring right now. I don't know if that's been topped today. Obviously, there's been games going on. As far as I'm concerned, I haven't gotten an ESPN notification saying that it has. But he has 2 of the fastest, and then he has 4 of the top 8 fastest. There's 4 more owned by another guy. So the 2 fastest was number 1, 102.4 and 101.8 miles per hour. To put that into perspective of how fast that is, I mean, I don't really think I need to. 100 plus miles per hour. I mean, that is some speed. A lot of your cars probably can't drive that fast. Mine barely can't without damn near blowing up. So that's what we got going on. Dude's got a straight cannon. I know that I want to say there was a ballpark practice for the Yankees where he struck out Judge. Obviously, that's a huge feat, as Judge is a complete. I mean, you let it for a second, Judge is slamming that thing and it's gone. Obviously, one of the premier hitters in the league this year, or in the past few years. So that's what we got going on. And to end off with the MLB, player protest is being brought into fruition with the ABS, the Automated Ball Strike Challenge System. Obviously, this was not the first time it's kind of been talked about. It was brought in originally during the All-Star game in Atlanta last year, between the national team, American team, or the NL and the AL teams. So basically, each team gets 2 of these challenges. Okay, the challenge could be made by the pitcher. could be made by the catcher. It can be made by the batter. So instead of just taking it and having to rely on these umpires to confirm or just, feel like they're having a good day, so they're going to challenge this play, you can, I think they tap on their head or something like that, and they put it on the scoreboard of the replay of the pitch, and obviously the batter box, the batter's box, or the strike zone. That's what it is, strike zone. And they're able to challenge it. Obviously, it's like the same thing as NFL. You get 2 a game. NFL is like 3. Well, it's really unlimited within like the first 13 minutes. I think the last 2 minutes of a quarter or a half is where it's cut off. It might be different for college football than NFL. But basically, you win the challenge, you keep the challenge. You lose the challenge, you lose the challenge. You lose the ability to challenge, so you'll have like one more. So it's very interesting to bring in. Obviously, it's not the first time we've had the mechanic like this. Obviously, we had the pitcher's clock last season. It's proven to be very interesting, or very, not too controversial of a mechanic or rule added to the game. So not too bad going on from there. I think a very good mechanic obviously added to the game, and it will be formally brought into the game on opening night against the Giants and the Yankees in San Francisco. So that's what we got going on. Yeah, so players are able to challenge, and it's going to be a very interesting season. I know it's already been used. I saw a couple clips of it being used actually in spring training within the last few days. So keep a lookout for that this season, and how that's going to kind of turn the tide of baseball, at least for the most part, when it comes to players' voices. Sorry, getting a call. So that's what we got going on for MLB. That's what we got wrapped up. Obviously, spring training in full effect. Now we got the World Baseball Classic next month, and then we have opening day. So we had the Olympics, obviously, lasted a couple of weeks, started a few weeks ago. Wrapped up on Sunday officially with the closing ceremony. I don't know if we had any events going on. Was I watching? I want to say it was Saturday. That was the men's hockey beat Canada, and now men's and women's have beat hockey, both teams, in gold medal events. Obviously, huge milestone for both. Men's haven't won in hockey since 2002. 2002, I want to say that was Salt Lake City. 2002. Tell me that. Correct me if I'm not right. But that's what I saw. Obviously, they played Canada in the gold medal match back in 2010. Lost that. So now, Canada has officially been capitalized as the 51st state. So, big props to them. Big props to men's and women's. Huge accomplishment for the U.S. of A. So, it's concluded now, and this is what our final medal count is going to be looking like. Norway, obviously, 41. USA, 33. Italy, 30. Norway, obviously, has 18 golds. USA has 12 golds. And Italy has 10 golds. You can kind of look and do the math. Obviously, silvers and bronze don't mean as much as gold, but that's what we got going on. Obviously, the next games will be in Los Angeles in 2028, debuting. I want to say it was debuting lacrosse or cricket, and then flag football. A lot of people have been talking about flag football. Obviously, it'd be a lot more interesting if we had people shoot up, but that's might be asking too much. Obviously, if they're going into like a round robin type of tournament bracket for the Olympics, so keep an eye out for that in 2028. Obviously, I think ticket bids, or like it is, or like spots for tickets have started already. Kind of like how we have with a lot of golf tournaments like the Masters and Players, blah blah, U.S. Open, PGA Open, or whatever like it is. And that's perfect leading to our last subject of the day, obviously the PGA. Obviously, we finished up the we finished up the West Coast tour. Now we're going to transition. I believe it is in Palm Bay. The Cognizant Classic. Yeah, so that starts tomorrow. That will be in South Florida, if I'm not wrong. That'll be in South Florida. Obviously, Jacob Bridgman conquers the Genesis Invitational at Riviera Golf Course. Huge win for him. He ends up shooting a total of under 18. Obviously, Scotty Scheffler still on his West Coast struggle. Hopefully, it changes within the next few weeks. I know that he and a lot of top 30 players, I think there's only one player in the top 30 right now that is actually going to be playing in this week's Cognizant Classic in Florida. Obviously, we have the Arnold Palmer next week. Not too sure of who's going to be playing that. Obviously, it's not technically, the player list isn't technically out yet. Couldn't find it anywhere when I was looking for it yesterday. But that's what we got going on. Obviously, Rory McIlroy, another huge name. Jacob Bridgman, obviously coming off his huge Genesis Invitational win. He will be skipping this week. Obviously, along with Rory, Scotty. There's a lot of other guys. Adam Scott was also in that name or in that group. And it's a really interesting move from someone like Jacob Bridgman. I guess, kind of riding that winner's mentality out of the Genesis Invitational, going into what I would assume next for him would be either Arnold Palmer or the Players. A lot of guys are going to be coming back for the Players. There also was something saying that Rory McIlroy wouldn't be back until the Masters, but there's no way he skips out on doing the Players. Obviously, he's been playing Premier in the past few years for the Players, or just in golf in general. Obviously, he won last year against J.J. Spaun in a playoff. I've talked about it 400 different times in the past few weeks on the podcast. So that's what we got going on. Obviously, Cognizant Classic. If you want to learn a lot of, subpar golf players, I wouldn't say subpar, that's kind of degrading, but if you want to learn a lot of the names of the not so big guys, it'll be very interesting. It'll be very interesting to see who comes out on top this week at the Cognizant Classic. Obviously, Arnold Palmer next week will be in Orlando. The Players is right after that here in Ponte Vedra Beach. Masters comes, I think, a couple weeks afterward, because usually it always happens like early to mid-April. I'd have to check. So that's what we got going on. Joe Highsmith actually is the champion in 2025 last year for the Cognizant Classic. Like I said, in front of Jacob Bridgman. Jacob Bridgman actually came in second with like under 16 for par, or under 16 under par last year, behind, I want to say, an under 17 performance from Joe Highsmith. That was under 17, under 18. Who knows? I don't know. I was checking it out yesterday. So that's what we got going on. And it's very interesting, Jacob Bridgman, he went second last year. Already coming off a very hot dub. Kind of got a chip on his shoulder. So I don't know why he isn't going to be playing this week. So, I guess it's just, very, very, it's a very bold difference, to play from the West Coast to the East Coast. Obviously, with what's been going on, there's been fires, there's been horrible weather over there. So that's what we got going on. So, yeah. A lot of people will probably be back for the Arnold Palmer next week. So keep an eye out for that. But, yeah, it starts tomorrow, Thursday. I think the earliest tee time is 6:45 a.m., which I haven't seen too much of. I think the earliest tee times for the past couple of or for at least the West Coast swing was like around 9 or 10. I was only able to tune in, at least other than the first day, I was able to tune in around like noon to like 3. Obviously, broadcasting stuff is very different with how, the times work there and with what works with what I'm currently utilizing to watch golf. Obviously, none of anyone's business, but basically, so what we got going on over the weekend. Obviously, keep an eye out for PGA. Always something going on, always some interesting stuff. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of great ball play going on this weekend for the Cognizant Classic. Scores probably won't be too high due to the fact that, not a lot of the bigger guys are playing. But, when there's a lot less top competition playing, It takes a little bit of stress off these other guys' shoulders. Maybe some young guys step in, maybe get their first tour win. I know that Jacob Bridgman, I want to say that his win in the Genesis Invitational was his first in 66 starts. If that stat line is correct. So that's what we got going on. I think Morikawa might be playing this week for the Cognizant. You'd have to look it up. I can't give you the full list. It'd take me like 20 years to read. Obviously there's like 140 something players playing. So basically that's what we got going on. Obviously watch out. Like I said, PGA. We got Combine. Obviously NBA still going on. College basketball still going on. Watch out for College Game Day, where that'll be this weekend. I think we're getting closer and closer to conference tournaments. And that's basically some of what we got going on today. MLB as well. Keep an eye out. I know a lot of people don't really like watching baseball on TV. I'm not gonna go against that. I kind of agree with that. Other than playoff baseball, it's just kind of a different atmosphere. Obviously, baseball games are way better in person. So, yeah, not too much. I think I'm going to a hockey game this weekend. Iceman, I don't know who they play. Jack's Iceman, they kind of suck at hockey. Obviously, been getting into the hockey a lot lately. It's honestly a really good sport, and especially, knowing what's happening with, Canada and, all the hockey stuff and the USA and hockey stuff. Sorry, I said Canada first. We don't like them. But, actually understanding how hockey works now is tremendous. I mean, it makes the sport a lot more entertaining, trust me. If you knew a lot about baseball, if you knew a lot about football, if you knew a lot about basketball, it'd be a lot more entertaining. It's a lot more meticulous. You kind of get to see how the sport works. I'm not going to go into detail. I'm not going to get into some philosophical advertisement for people to kind of invest their time in sports and kind of learn the sport and know everything about the sport, because that's basically what I'm trying to do for you guys. Basically, what I'm saying is I'm talking on and on and on and on. But yeah, so I hope everyone has a great rest of their Wednesday. Probably going to be a later episode. Great rest of their week. Obviously, March is coming up. But yeah, so I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, great rest of their week. Make March a great month, because I won't see you, I don't think, until March 2nd or 3rd. So yeah, it has been Michael Schneider with Mic'd Up. Have a fantastic day. Make sure to chase your dreams, because nobody can tell you that you won't achieve them, because they don't really know you. Cute little spin to what I usually say for my outro. But like I said, chase your dreams. Don't let anybody tell you what to do, because they don't know you at all. Be your own boss. Be a boss, bitch. Be a baller. All right. Get out there and chase your dreams. That's what I'm doing. But yeah, it's been Michael Schneider with Mic'd Up. Catch you guys next Wednesday right here from Ponte Vedra, Florida.